So this is part 3 of our revision series. Okay. So again, the same format. So we will go through some of the, let's say, problems that you might likely see in mains and NEET. Okay. So let's look at problems from system of particles and collisions first. Okay. So take a look at this problem. You see that word is missing. X is the distance from the origin. Okay, so distance from the origin. Now, in this problem, what is it they're saying? Along x-axis, so a rod is placed and then one end of the rod is at the origin. Okay, so the linear mass density is a function of the distance from the origin that is given. We are asked to find the center of mass location. Now, obviously we have to integrate, but let us see if we can do this problem without integrating. See, if you look at the mass per unit length, linear mass density, it depends as x square. So that means if I split this into two halves, okay, so in the second half, mass is more rather than this first half. So that means the center of mass must lie somewhere beyond the midpoint. Now look at the options. L by 4 cannot be the answer. L by 2 cannot be the answer. 2L by 5, it's 40% of L. That cannot be the answer. So what is the answer?
3L by 4.
See, so I mean, this is something that you should adopt.
Yeah, okay.
Again, I'm not saying that every time this is possible, but let's say wherever it is possible, we should do this. We have not done anything. But again, we also want to know how to get these things done. Okay. So by definition, what is the x center of mass? X center of mass is we're going to write integral of the summation of product of position and dm particle and then divide by mass. Since we don't know mass, even that has to be integrated. Okay. So this is how we do this problem. Let's say. I know. I mean, once we solve the problem, the interest will go away to look at the actual root, but that is also important to understand. Okay. So just be patient. So let's say from the origin at a distance x, let's say this is dx, suppose. What is the mass of this sample piece dm? So which I can write it as k x square by 2, so that is mass per unit length into dx. So now everything we will substitute here. So the x center of mass will be, and even the integral is not bad. Okay, so x into k x square by 2 dx, and in the denominator I have k x square by 2 dx. Now if you notice that k by 2 disappears, in the numerator I have x to the x cube dx, and in the denominator I have x square dx. Obviously we're going to integrate from 0 to L, 0 to L. So numerator we will get L cube by 4, and in the denominator I have L cube by 3, so that is 3L by 4. Okay, and again this is also not bad, but sometimes if you are not able to use the correct root, don't wait for a few seconds, see if there is a root to get the answer. Okay. Yeah. Okay, so try this one. Okay, so very nice, so that is correct. So in this question they're saying okay, a body starts falling of mass m. Okay, so this is A, and then somewhere it breaks into B and C. The masses are given. But if you look at the acceleration of center of mass, it is net force divided by total mass of the system. So even after splitting, the net force is not going to change. The earth is going to apply the same force in the downward direction. The center of mass must continue to move along the same vertical line. Okay, it will not shift. Okay, so B and C, if they might go in different directions, but still horizontally there are no forces. So horizontally the momentum should continue to be same. Okay, so one thing that you need to understand here is, if you look at the mass of C, that is twice mass of B. So if C, let's say, falls 1 meter to the right, okay, so to maintain the center of mass along the same vertical line, B should fall 2 meters to the left. So that is another thing that you should keep in mind. You understand this?
Yeah.
No, because the center of mass should again lie, the X center of mass should lie on that vertical line.
Yeah.
Okay, so take a look at this problem. You're able to see this?
Yeah.
Okay, so I mean, I'm still learning here. Okay, so but I will show you here. What you can do is, let me, I think you have this, this is A. I think I need to use a different color. Yeah. So this is block A and this is block B. Now, see what is happening. A is applying force on B perpendicular to its surface, right, in this direction. So B is going to apply. So this is force on B by A. So there will be force on A by B. So that means A will get pushed to the, let's say, left in this direction. So now if I look at this, okay, so let me remove the animations. You understand the forces now? But again, since we are trying to answer the question using center of mass concepts, we don't have to worry about the force values. Okay, so let's see if we can get without those. So let's understand here first why, how the motion is happening. So see, when I start the play, the small block moves and then it is getting shifted. You understand?
Mm-hmm.
So the bigger wedge is moving left. So let's say if I look at exactly when it is lower, let's say, maybe slightly, I think I need to know how to control all this, but let's say, okay. So anyway, we will discuss. I think I will try to figure this out, how to understand this animation. So let's go back to our, okay. So now that you understand that the wedge A will move to the left. So after some time, the scenario will be like this, right? So suppose on the horizontal plane, okay. So on the horizontal plane, okay, so on the horizontal plane, suppose the wedge comes to this location. I'll take a different color. So let's say the wedge has come to this location. So that will be the position of the wedge. So that means it has moved by distance x. We're asked to find this distance x. Okay. And the block B has just hit the horizontal ground. Again, this is something that you have to understand. You understand this?
Yeah.
Okay. Now let us look at the, let's say, situation when there is no net force. If you look at our system is wedge A plus B. So horizontally, okay, horizontally, can I say there is no net force? So horizontally net force is 0. Okay, horizontally nobody is applying force. I'm taking both the wedges as a system.
Yeah.
So in that case, what happens if net force is 0? I can say that acceleration of center of mass is 0. Now, initially, in the beginning, the velocity of center of mass at rest, you don't have to locate the center of mass.
Mm.
You know that velocity of center of mass is at rest initially. So that means velocity of center of mass must continue to be 0. So that means what is the displacement of the center of mass? That is also 0. So when I have two objects, how do I get the displacement? Mass of A, displacement of A, plus mass of B, displacement of B, by mass of A plus mass of B. This is any average calculation. This is equal to 0. You understand this? Now, coming to the masses. Masses are not given. So how do I get the masses? So suppose I take mass of B as M. Okay, mass of B as M. Look at the area of B. The area of B is, it is a right angle isosceles triangle. I'm taking the cross sectional area. So that is half A square. If I take a look at the area of A, that is half 9A square. So area of A is 9 times area of B. So can I say the mass of A will be 9m?
Mm.
Okay, mass of B is m, mass of A will be 9m. That is another thing that we need to understand. Now, the last thing, very important thing that we need to understand is this displacement of center of mass, which is 0, is with respect to ground frame. Okay, now if there is a person standing on the wedge A, he will say that horizontally this point, okay, so this point was at the topmost point, and then it moved what distance? It moved
X.
this distance, which is 2a. You understand that? Okay, so let us understand that. Let me go to this page. See, that is important to understand. Okay, so imagine there is a massless observer standing here, and then I target this end. Okay, so I target this end. Okay, so I'm focusing my attention on that end as the wedges move, one to the right and one to the left. Now I'm taking a different picture here. So let's say A takes this position, and our massless observer is right on top of A, and he or she sees that this point is here. Now with respect to the observer, that point was here. Now horizontally, what is the displacement? Horizontally, this is 3a, right? And this is a.
Mm.
So that means horizontally, what is the displacement? 2a.
Okay.
But because it is on the bigger wedge A, bigger wedge also moved to the left. So we'll have to get with respect to ground displacement. Okay. So now, since the center of mass displacement is 0, now you understand this idea. Mass of A into displacement of A plus mass of B into displacement of B is 0. Now we are saying displacement of A is x to the left. So right side, I'll take it as positive. So mass of A will be 9m. Its displacement is minus x, plus mass of B is m. Now its displacement will be displacement of A minus x plus displacement with respect to A, which is 2a.
2A.
That is important to understand. That is where students sometimes make a mistake. So now mass disappears anyway. So you have 9x, oh sorry, I think it will be 10x, right? You have 9x here and then another x here. So it will be 10x is equal to 2a. So x becomes a by 5. You understand this?
Yeah.
This is actually a very important problem. Okay. So any questions, beta? Yeah.
Got it.
Okay. So try this problem. Very good. That is correct. I think you understand that when two identical blocks they collide, one comes to a dead stop, the other takes off with the same velocity. So that means here we can say that A comes to rest. Okay, so A comes to rest, and then B takes off with the same velocity V naught. But if you look at what is happening here, initially B has velocity. So the speed of B is actually greater than speed of C, which is literally zero initially.
Mm.
Now, as B moves to the right, the spring gets compressed. Okay, so the spring is trying to reduce the speed of B. So the speed of B will go down and the speed of A will increase. The same spring force is helping C gain speed, B lose speed, or let's say it's not helping B, it's like reducing the speed. So slowly what will happen, there will be a time when both of them will have the same speed. Okay, so when they have same speed, when speed is same, the compression is maximum. Okay, so why is compression maximum? Because after that, spring is still trying to push A to the right. Okay, so at some time, VB is equal to VC. So that is when the compression is maximum. After that, speed of C is still increasing. Speed of B is still decreasing. You understand?
Yeah.
So that means the spring will again begin to stretch out. Okay, so now at maximum compression, they will move with a common velocity. Now, what will be the common velocity? Common velocity has to be center of mass velocity. Okay, so you can get that by conserving linear momentum also. So that would be mass of B into its velocity plus mass of C, which is 4m into its velocity is 0 by total mass, which is 5m. So the velocity would be V naught by 5. Then we can use energy conservation. So kinetic energy is lost and then that gets converted into elastic potential energy. So we can write that down. So initial kinetic energy is half m v naught square. The final kinetic energy is like half. Now they are moving together now at the maximum compression. So 5m and then v naught by 5 square, and that is equal to half k x square. So the left hand side, if you see, I get mv naught square is common. And I think I'll get 1 minus 1 by 5, so which is 4 by 5. So from here, you'll get B. Very good, beta. Nice. So let us move on. Okay, so now let us look at a few problems from ray optics. Okay, so take a look at this problem. Okay, so in this problem, so you have a girl who is 144 meters tall.
Okay.
So let's say that is the girl. Okay, so you have to excuse me for my diagram. Okay, so this is the plane mirror, let's say. Now in a plane mirror, you will see an image of the same size, right? Okay, so the image will be exactly at the same distance. Okay, I may not draw exactly same, but it's the same girl. Okay, now if you look at it, this will also be 6 meters.
Mm.
This is 6 meters. Now they are asking what is the angle subtended at the eye by the image. So let's say if I take the eye of the girl, the top of the image is here, the bottom of the image is here. So this is the angle they're looking at, right? Now this portion from eye to the top of the hair, I think you can ignore. So this is almost straight. You can take it as almost straight. So that would be 12 meters. Now the height of the girl is 1.44 meters. Now you can almost treat it as a 90-degree, this one. So you can just say, I can use tan theta. In this case, if you look at 1.44 and 12, tan theta is almost theta. So which I can write it as 1.44 by 12. So we will get 0.12 radian.
Okay.
You understand this? Yeah, okay. Okay, so take a look at this one. So don't worry. Okay, this problems they might ask. So what I would suggest is you say this. Okay, now it has come. You see this flow chart.
Yeah, I remember this.
Okay, so I think I would suggest you keep this in mind. Okay, so here what we are saying is if first you have to check is 360 by theta. Theta is in degrees. Is it even? So if you look at 360 degrees, theta is 60 degrees. So what we get 6. So that is even. So if it is even, the number of images is 360 by theta minus 1. So 6 minus 1, so that is 5. So the answer should be A. Now what if you get an odd number? So if you get an odd number, you'll have to check. Okay, so if you have these plane mirrors, you have to check if the object is placed at the same distance. So that means is it placed, if you look at this plane, is it placed on the angle bisector? If it is placed on the angle bisector, the number of images is still same. If not, if it is placed somewhere else, you'll get one extra image.
Okay.
If it is placed symmetrically, I think the two images actually coincide. If you remove the symmetry, they appear distinctly. So that is. And then the other case is like when you have, let's say sometimes you don't get an integer. You'll get a fraction. So you can ignore the decimal part, you take the integral part, and then so many images will be there. You can take, I think that is, they don't ask that. That's like very rare. I think mains need, they'll ask nice questions. So don't worry. Okay, so take a look at this problem. So they're saying, okay, so you have a convex side wave mirror, and all mirrors are convex mirrors in vehicles. So if you, I'm not showing you the first car, we will just take the mirror. Okay, so that mirror itself represents the first car. And we have this second car assumed to be on the principal axis. Okay, so that's our second car. Now it is moving with velocity 15 meter per second. And then it is at a distance of 2.8 meters. Okay, we are supposed to use mirror formula only. What is mirror formula? 1 by V plus 1 by U is equal to 1 by F.
That is where I went wrong.
Yeah, you might have taken minus. That is length.
Yeah, I took it as length.
So you have to be careful. Okay. And then if I take the time derivative here with respect to time, I get minus 1 by V square. dV by dt is the speed of, let's say, image with respect to the mirror, minus 1 by U square du by dt. Okay, so that is equal to 0. Okay, the mirror is anyway at rest. So I think everything is from the ground frame again. So if I look at dV by, this is the du by dt is the speed of the car, object speed. dV by dt is image speed with respect to mirror. So dV by dt is what we are asked. So that is minus V square by U square into du by dt. So I suggest you remember these results. Now here if I substitute values, so 1 by V plus, okay, it is measured in the opposite direction of the incident rays. Incident rays are going from the car to the mirror. So this will be negative. So minus 2.8, I'll convert that into centimeters. So 280. Okay, so the focus is on the right side of the pole. So it will be positive. So that's 20. So you can solve this. So I have 1 by 20 and then what do I have? 1 by, so 14 plus 1. I think V comes out to be, how much is that? 15 by 14. So that will be 3 by 4. So 56 by 3. Is that okay?
Mm.
Okay. Now, once we get that, I know U is 280. And again, we are going to only look at the speed. So I can just take the absolute values. Okay. Du by dt is given as 15 meter per second. So we can just substitute. V is 56 by 3. And then U is 280. We need to square this up. And then du by dt is 50. Okay. So if I look at, I think 28 and then 28, 2. So I think we get 1 by 15 meter per second. Are you okay, beta?
Yeah.
So the answer should be A. Yeah, again, for mirror formula is 1 by V plus 1 by U is equal to 1 by F. And lens, it is 1 by V minus 1 by U is equal to 1 by F.
Mm.
Okay, so try this problem. So, you know, one good thing about mains, sometimes the problems repeat. Okay.
Mhm.
So, but conceptually, okay. So concepts anyway repeat. So this is the surface of water, suppose. Let's say the fish is somewhere here. Okay. I think that is fish. Okay. And then if I look at the total internal reflection, so what it means is the light leaving the fish. Okay. So as it hits, let's say some point here, suppose this angle of incidence is critical angle. The refracted ray will just pass along the surface of water. So if you increase the angle of incidence, that means you'll have to go beyond that point. Okay, so suppose to, if the light leaving the fish falls somewhere here, the angle increases, but there will be total internal reflection. Okay, so now to find the radius, what we have to do, I think this side also the same thing is happening. So you can imagine that that is a circle. Okay, out of which, let's say, the light leaving the fish will go out, and the same thing will happen, light coming from outside. Okay, if it hits at any point in that circle, it will reach the eye of the fish.
Mm.
Okay, so we are asked to find this radius. So that means there is clearly theta c is the critical angle. Okay, if that is the critical angle, you can use Snell's law. Okay, Snell's law says refractive index, product of refractive index 4 by 3 into sine of angle of incidence is equal to refractive index of air 1, and then here it is 90. So sine 90. Okay, so once you get that, this is also theta c, and then this is 12 centimeters. So we can say sine theta c is 3 by 4. So R by 12 centimeters is tan theta c. Okay, so if you take a small triangle here, so theta c, so this is 3, this is 4, so this becomes root 7, right? So tan theta c will be 3 by root 7. So R happens to be 36 by root 7. Very good. That is correct. You understood?
Yeah.
I mean, you got it, so you understood. So now let us look at few problems in involving magnetic fields. Okay, so try this problem. Okay, so let us discuss. You could be right. Let us discuss. Now, what are they saying between these 2 points, A and C? Uh, Obviously, if I look along B or D, via B or D, between, because these are same points, the potential difference is same. Okay, so if I use potential difference is equal to IR, Ohm's law, the resistance of ABC is thrice resistance of ADC. So let's say ADC has resistance R. ABC will have resistance 3R. The current will be in the inverse ratio. Okay, so that means 1 part current goes along ABC and then 3 parts current will go along ADC. So 1 and 3, 4 parts. So that means the current, let's say along ABC will be I by 4. You understand that? And the current along ADC will be 3I by 4. So once we have this, now we'll have to figure out the direction of the magnetic field. Now we know that if you have a complete circle, suppose if you have a complete circle, the current is I, suppose. The magnetic field at the center is mu naught I by 2R. This I'm sure you know. Okay. Because we have half the circle, we will use the result, but we will just take half of it. Now let us look at the contribution coming from ABC. So from ABC, it would be half of mu naught. I will be I by 4 by 2R. Are you okay?
Yeah.
Now this is mu naught I by 16R. Now what is the direction? Use right hand thumb rule. It is into the board or into the page. So I'll say it is into. Now similarly ADC. ADC contribution will be what? Half of mu naught 3I by 4 is the current by 2R. Okay. So how much is this? This is 3 mu naught I by 16R. Now the direction here is clearly out of the board, out of the page. So now what is the net magnetic field? Net magnetic field, I need to, it will be, which is greater? The field which is out of the board is greater. So that means definitely it is out of the page. I'll have to take a difference. Okay, so mu naught I by R is 16R is anyway constant, a common factor. So 3 minus 1. So I should get mu naught I by 8R, but out of the page. So the answer should be C. Okay, so you're okay? I think this is wrong. Okay, the answer should be C. Or shall we verify whether we have done it okay? So if I is the current, the resistance is 3. So ADC is 3. ADC is 3. And then this is, ADC is R. So ABC will be 3R. So the current will be smaller here. So 1/4 is ABC. 3/4 will be ADC. I think this is okay. Yeah. Then I have, we are looking at semicircles from the diagram. So I have mu naught I by 4 by 2R. I think we are okay. I think I took it as like A, but answer should be C. Okay, so take a look at this problem. So I think the magnetic field due to a current in a wire is obtained using that Biot-Savart law. We call it Biot-Savart's law, right? So it's actually pronounced as Biot-Savart law. if you have a straight wire, okay, so let's say I take a straight wire. I think now we don't have time to derive everything. I'll just give you the result. So if you have a straight wire, so let's say this is the straight wire. Now this wire has current I in it. Okay. So now we want to find the magnetic field at some point P here, suppose. Okay, so what you do is you draw a perpendicular line from point P to the line along the wire. Okay, so that is the first thing that you need to do. Okay, so wherever you have a point where you are trying to get the magnetic field, draw a perpendicular line. So let's say I'm only interested in one of the segments, suppose. Okay, so I'm interested in AB, suppose. Okay, so here I'm showing current to the right, here it is to the left. So if I'm taking AB, what we can do, we draw a perpendicular line. Okay, okay. So next, if this perpendicular distance, let's consider it as, let's say R. Now from there on, the starting of the element is measured with an angle. Okay, so let's say this angle is theta 1, suppose, and the last one is theta 2, suppose. So whatever angles that are measured in one direction, let's say in this case counterclockwise sense, they're taken as positive. So clockwise would be negative. It is up to you. Okay, one of them you take it as positive, the other negative. For this, the magnetic field at point P, okay, so at P, the magnetic field, you try to remember this result. It is mu naught I by 4 pi r multiplied by sine of theta 2 minus sine of theta 1. So there is another variation. They take these angles and then write, but I think this is better. Okay, now for this AB, first let us get the magnitude and then we'll worry about the direction. So if I take AB, the angle is measured in this direction. So that is, I think in a hexagon, it will be a right angle triangle. So this will be 30 degrees. And this angle is also 30 degrees. You understand that better?
Yeah.
Okay, so now for one segment, magnetic field for one segment. Okay, so for one segment. So I can, in this case, I can take counterclockwise. I can still do that. Let's say, okay, so mu naught, okay, I, current is I, 4 pi r. R is that perpendicular distance. If A is the edge length of a triangle, which is equilateral triangle here, the height is root 3 by 2a. And then I have sine theta 2, which is 30 degrees. Okay, that I'm taking positive. So the other would be negative, minus 30 degrees. One is positive, the other is negative. You're okay?
Yeah.
So here we get mu naught I by this is 2 pi root 3a. And this is sine 30 is half. This is minus minus plus half. So you'll get 1. Okay, now let us look at the direction. If you use right hand thumb rule, okay, if you use right hand thumb rule, if you hold the wire AB so that the thumb points in the direction of the current, the 4 fingers tap into the board, into the page. So that means the magnetic field is definitely into the page. You understand better?
Yeah.
Now, if you take any segment, the same thing will happen, right? All segments produce magnetic field into the page. So there's nothing that is going to get cancelled.
Okay.
Everybody provides magnetic field into the page. Okay, so 2 options we can actually eliminate. Now to get the, but we have done only for one segment, right? Calculation. So the overall magnetic field, total magnetic field will be 6 times this. Okay, so if I multiply by 6, I think 6 by 2, 3. So I'll end up having root 3 mu naught I by pi. Oh, what is happening? Pi a. You understand this? I think some weird thing is happening. Pi a. Are you okay, beta?
Yeah.
So the answer should be D. Okay, let's see if I got it right this time. Yeah, D. Okay, so try to take a look at this one. So let's talk about it. Okay, so what is this question saying? The particle is acted upon by force of constant magnitude, which is always perpendicular to the velocity. And again, this problem is from the magnetic field section. So you know about this magnetic force. So the magnetic force on a moving charged particle is Q V cross B. Okay, so the magnetic force is always at right angles to the velocity. So suppose if I imagine uh, if the magnetic field is into the board, so let's say if I show that by a few cross marks. Okay, so if the magnetic field is into the board like this, so imagine the magnetic field is present everywhere. Okay, so throughout the board. Okay, so imagine that. Now, if I bring a charged particle which is moving in the plane of the board, let's say, so I have a charged particle, I give some velocity v. So if I do qv cross b, the magnetic force will be upwards right now. So any perpendicular force, okay, will actually change the direction in which the particle is moving, but it will never change the magnitude of velocity. So this will move around a circle, the particle. Okay, you understand better? The particle
Yeah.
moves around a circle, and then this is uniform circular motion. Okay, the speed remains same. Speed is same. But see, when it comes to velocity, velocity has to same, the direction also has to be same, right? So velocity is not constant because direction changes. Okay, now it is not definitely moving along a straight line. Okay, so these two are wrong. Okay, now it has a constant acceleration. No, because here you're dealing with centripetal acceleration, right? Every time. So that changes direction. Magnitude is constant. So that is also not,
Okay.
because speed is same, the kinetic energy remains same.
Okay.
You understand?
Yeah.
D is the answer. Okay, so try answering this question. Okay, so this is I think when the solenoid is taught for the first time, I think everyone would know, but after that I have seen that students forget about this. Okay, so if you take a solenoid, a long solenoid, okay, I can't draw, but inside you get mu naught Ni. Okay, but just outside, the magnetic field drops to half mu naught Ni by 2. So keep that in mind.
Okay.
Everywhere else outside it is 0, but just outside on the axis of the solenoid, it is mu naught I by 2. Okay, so sometimes they ask this question. So just keep that in mind. Okay, so now some rotational mechanics.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so try answering this question. See, if the uniform cube is like just tilted about A, I can, let's say, look at the clockwise torque. Okay, so the clockwise torque, sorry, so that should be clockwise. The clockwise torque should be just greater than, slightly greater than counterclockwise torque. Now let us see who is providing this. I think slightly greater, so I'll just take it as equal to. Now about this point. Now when it is about to get tilted, almost, let's say the entire cube leaves the ground. Okay, it takes some position like this. It's like, it's very difficult to see that. Okay, so there is only one line edge which is in contact with the floor. Now the gravitational force anyway passes through the center of mass, so that is mg. Now that will be at a distance of a by 2. So gravitational force is providing counterclockwise torque. The applied force is providing clockwise torque. So the clockwise torque is force into perpendicular distance, which is 3a by 4, which is slightly greater. In this case, we're just taking equal to. Counterclockwise torque is mg into a by 2. So the minimum force should be 2 by 3 mg.
Okay.
Okay. So you understand this?
Yeah.
Okay, so try to take a look at this one. Okay, so what is the problem saying? So you have a uniform ring. It's rotated to an angular velocity omega naught about its axis. And then it is carefully placed on a horizontal surface, okay, with its plane in the vertical direction, vertical orientation. I think you understand this. Okay, so the plane of the ring is perpendicular to the horizontal surface. Now, the coefficient of friction is given. We need to find the time after which its angular speed reduces to half. Now, if you look at the points that are touching the ground, okay, so the points that are touching the ground, let's say these points, as the, let's say, ring rotates, they're rubbing against the ground and then they want to go to the left side. So the ground surface will apply friction force to the right. Okay, I think the friction force, we know it is mu k mg. So that we know. Okay, so Fk is mu k mg. Now, it will provide a counterclockwise angular acceleration. Okay, so about center of mass axis. Okay, so if you take about center of mass axis, if I apply net torque is equal to I alpha. Okay, so the torque is Fk into R, so which is mu k mg into R. Moment of inertia of a ring is mr square into alpha. So alpha comes out to be mu k g by R. Now, what do we have to do? You want the angular speed to reduce to half. So I can just simply use omega is equal to omega naught plus alpha t. So I will take clockwise direction as positive here. So final omega should be half. So omega naught by 2, that is equal to omega naught. So if clockwise direction is positive, counterclockwise will be negative. So which is minus mu k g by R into t. So we get, I think, minus omega naught by 2 is equal to minus mu k g by R into t. So the time comes out to be omega naught R by 2 mu k g. You're okay, beta?
Yeah.
So the answer should be A. So you understand, you need to get the angular acceleration and then use it in the kinematic equation. Okay, now a similar problem. Now try this.
Oh, isn't it the same?
The information is same. Okay, you just have to find right now, if you look at the ring, right now, if you look at the point of contact, so let's say if I take the point of contact, it has only tangential velocity to the left. There is no center of mass velocity. So that means the points are slipping. So that's not pure rolling. In pure rolling, the point of contact should have zero velocity. So in the next question, they're asking in what time the ring rolls without slipping. So try. So here, initially it is not rolling without slipping because it's only having.
1 second.
Yeah.
Is it C? 2 mu naught R by mu kg?
I don't think so.
Okay.
We will discuss. So if I take the angular velocity omega naught, so initially you understand. So there is friction to the right. So we get angular acceleration in the counterclockwise sense, which we have seen, which is mu kg by r.
Yeah.
Now there will be center of mass acceleration to the right as well, which I can get net force, which is mu k mg by m. So the center of mass acceleration is mu k g. Now, after some time, if the ring is rolling without slipping, what is the idea here? The point that is touching the ground will anyway have center of mass velocity to the right. Let's say v is the velocity at that point, and then let's say omega is the angular velocity at that time. It will also have tangential velocity to the left. Okay, so this v should be equal to tangential velocity to the left. Okay, so this is r omega and this is v. Now if I use kinematic equations, v is equal to u plus at. So initially the velocity is 0. So I get 0 plus mu k g t. And then omega, how do I get omega? Omega naught plus alpha t. Now omega naught, alpha is what? Minus mu k g by r into t. So now if I substitute here, I'll get r omega naught minus mu k g t is equal to mu k g t. So from here, what is t? R omega naught by 2 mu k g. So we're getting the same answer. A.
Yeah.
You're okay?
Mm.
Okay, so now take a look at this problem. Again, it's the same problem. The question is different. Very nice. So if you look at the previous,
Sorry, mu not omega not by 2.
that is okay. That is that. I understood. It is omega naught by 2. I understood. So if you look at the previous two questions, the time is same. In the first question, omega naught by 2, the time is same. So if you calculate, let's say if you substitute here, we want omega, right? So if I substitute time here, you will get omega naught by 2. So omega naught by 2 is correct. Very good. So this is right. Okay. Now take a look at this question. Now it is little different. Okay. It is little different.
Wait.
No,
Oh,
it is
okay.
little different. Read carefully. Even I don't remember the answer. We will discuss. Yeah. Okay. So I think you understood the problem, right? The ring is placed flat on the ground, let's say. So that is the ring. So let me give some thickness. Okay. Yeah. Now it is getting rotated with angular velocity omega. Now, if I take any small portion, so let's say if the small portion has mass dm, if I look in this direction, look flat along the ground, I'll be looking at this mass dm, and then normal force will match the gravitational force dm into g. Okay, now this part will have tangential velocity in this direction. Okay, so the frictional force will point in the opposite direction. Okay, so there will be a frictional force pointing in the opposite direction. Now, if I take that frictional force, how do I calculate frictional force? It is again mu k mg, but this frictional force is only due to a small piece. So they put the df, differential friction force, matlab small quantity. So dfk will be mu k into dm into g. Now, if I want to get the torque, I'll multiply by r. So the torque acting, let's say on that particle would be r into, I'll just multiply by r. So mu k g r into dm. Now, if you look at the torque will be in the same direction. Okay, so doesn't matter which piece I take of the ring. So everywhere the frictional force will be in the opposite direction of the velocity, and the torque will be, if you use right hand thumb rule, the torque will be in the clockwise sense. Okay, so your angular acceleration will be in the clockwise sense to stop the ring from rotating. So if I integrate, I'll get the total torque. but that is anyway integrating mass. So you get simply total mass mu k g r by m. Now what is alpha? Alpha is torque by moment of inertia. So we get mu k mgr by mr square. So even here, if you see alpha, you get mu k g by r. You understand, beta? So that means I think you can guess the answer now. So I can use again omega is equal to omega naught plus alpha t. So I'll
So is it the
take,
same answer?
no, slightly different. Counterclockwise, I'll take it as positive. So final is 0. So this is omega naught, okay, minus this is mu k g by r into t. So t will be r omega naught by mu kg.
Okay.
You understand? Okay, so the answer will be B. You understood this problem?
Mm.
Yeah, good. So that is the answer.